Jon Stewart is a former professional wrestler, and he did achieve championship status. And then he ran for political office at the federal level for the state of Illinois. And about 20 years ago, he became very interested in a controversial video concerning a captured alien that was under interrogation. And ever since that time, he has explored, investigated, and found corroborating data that this is probably one of the most important, if not the most important, UFO film on record.
You're listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
Well, welcome, Jon, to Exopolitics Today.
Thank you so much for having me. I am a huge fan of yours, as I told you in our first email. I've watched many of your shows and episodes, and you are, if I can say, one of the wise men on the Hill in regards to our community. So I sincerely thank you for having me on.
Well, it's a pleasure, and you have a really fascinating background. I mean, you did achieve some success in the sports industry, I guess, as a professional wrestler. I mean, you wrestled for, I think, several decades, and you did achieve heavyweight champion status. So you want to tell my audience that maybe don't know anything about you, about your professional wrestling career.
Yeah, very quickly, pro wrestling, like a lot of Midwestern and Eastern cities, was very popular, especially when I was growing up. And then it became kind of like a underground sport. But my father actually got wrestling tickets from my father was an automobile dealer. And so another dealer that was promoting wrestling on commercials gave my father wrestling tickets. And I went to this smoky, dingy International Amphitheater, which was very famous in the 40s, 50s, and 60s in Chicago, and saw these Herculean cartoon characters in the 70s, one of them, Dick the Bruiser, wrestle. And I was just, I think, like a lot of people that maybe see a fighter jet or movies when they're growing up, or a fire truck, or you just suddenly realize, I think I need to do this for a living, or at least try this. And I was just obsessed with wrestling all through my football life. I was a very good football player in high school. I went to the University of Memphis on a walk-on, invited walk-on scholarship. And it was then there that a friend of mine met a wrestling promoter in a grocery store, and he said, this young kid came down here just to wrestle, and he's playing football for Memphis State. And 3 months later, for a guy that just wanted to step in the ring one time, I got in a character. I was winning matches on TV, still going to class, spent the whole summer wrestling. And I did that up until 2012, on and off. And my biggest stint was on ESPN for AWA, based out of Minneapolis. My boss was Vern Gagne. And again, for a guy that just wanted to step in the wrestling ring once, I was in wrestling for 3 years, and I was on the main event on ESPN. I tell a really quick, funny story. The shuttle bus from the hotel is taking me to the arena. I've got a managerial psychology book in my gym bag because I have class on Monday, and this is Saturday afternoon. And the shuttle bus pulls me up to the arena, and there's the ESPN semi-production trucks in the back, and my name and Sergeant Slaughter's name are on the Jumbotron, going to wrestle each other for the ESPN main event. And so it was very surreal. I was probably, other than Mike Tyson at the time, probably one of the most interesting 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds in America. And the thing that I'm glad you brought that up, not to pat myself on the back, but to tell people that it was my success, or the ability to at least become a pro wrestler, that gave me this foundation of tenacity. And you can do anything you set your mind out to. And I don't say that to be ham-handed. I don't say that to be Pollyanna or to get in good graces with your audience, but I have had always a tremendous amount of confidence because I did something 6 months out of high school that most people thought I couldn't do, or it would at least take me 5 or 10 years. And so I am very grateful for my time in professional sports. That it is that experience that I think propelled me to having success and proving what I think is the most definitive and most historical important document in human history. And that's I think I have to come clean on that.
Yeah, I think it's very important just to kind of like give some background about you, about
Yeah.
why your research into this is so significant, and you also during your wrestling career, because obviously you achieved a certain degree of success, you also ran for political office for the state of Illinois for the U.S. Congress,
Right.
and you actually had Kellyanne Conway as your campaign manager. So you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, growing up in the city of Chicago, you can't help but not be involved or being around politics. My family business, we always had a bunch of politicians, coming in and out of the business, just hanging around or greeting or whatever. And a lot of the politicians said to me, you're well spoken and you've got this wrestling background. You should try political office. So I ran for state rep in the downtown Gold Coast area of Chicago in '97. Coincidentally, when I first saw this alien video. And then in 1999, I moved to the North Shore when I got married to my wife. The North Shore area is where all the John Hughes high school movies were filmed, which is a pretty interesting fact. But that Congressman, John Porter, was resigning. And so I got a bunch of calls when we came back from our honeymoon that said, John, your congressman's resigning. You got to do this. This is a perfect opportunity. You don't have to run against an incumbent. If anything, it'll really get your name out there. And so I did that. But when I ran for state rep, it was such a hellacious mission, almost like trying to prove the biggest story on the planet when all of your witnesses are dead. I hired Kellyanne Conway, who had a polling company, and I was Kellyanne Conway's first political consulting client. So we always kind of tease each other about that. And that was a great experience. And I went to Washington and she just mapped out everything I would need to do to have any chance of winning. And her and I went to a taping of hers on Chris Matthews. I don't know if you remember his show. I think it was called Hardball. And so, yeah, I'm very, very proud to say that I was Kellyanne's first political client because she had the polling company beforehand. And never once surprised me the success that she has achieved. She is just a super smart lady, very determined. And I see a lot of me in her, and I think vice versa. We were two young people that were trying to go after the brass ring. And so I'm really tickled that I have that association with her and what she achieved.
Right. So you're at this time, I mean, you're a pro wrestler. You've run several times for the state of Illinois, whether in state level elections or congressional elections.
Right.
And in 1997, this video came out about this alien being interrogated, a gray alien. And at some point you saw that video. So why did that video become a life-changing event for you?
Dr. Sala, I think it was my lifestyle at the time that really grabbed me. I was living, and again, I'm not bragging, I'm just speaking facts here. I owned a condo in the Gold Coast of Chicago, the 36th floor. I had a boat on Lake Michigan. I was driving an 8-year-old black Porsche. I was a part-time wrestler on the weekends. I was in the high-paced business of the wholesale automobile industry, and running for state rep. And I was always interested in conspiracy, paranormal, you name it. And I hear the alien interview is coming out in May. So I'm sit down at my couch, Dr. Sala, and I'm I've got all my accoutrements ready to watch this pretty, interesting documentary. I'm thinking alien interview. I think that I'm going to see a closed circuit camera above on the ceiling of a weird looking humanoid or human sitting down with the general at the Pentagon for an interview for a job. This is how my brain was thinking. So when all of a sudden this very bizarre darkened room and this gray alien, for all intents and purposes, who was tan and didn't have almond eyes, and I noticed shadow figures in the background, and I'm saying to myself, this is a really bad hoax, because there's actors in here where all they do is show the silhouette. And then the medical crew come in when the creature starts to flag. You'll see them. Yes, you'll see them right there. They're dressed in short sleeve scrubs in their gray college T-shirt, are kind of sticking out of the scrubs. And I'm like, I'm a professional wrestler, folks. If there is someone who's an expert on hoaxing and conning the public, well, it's me. I've been a theatrical con man my whole wrestling career. I fooled people on if I was hurt, if I was mad, if I hated my opponent, my bio, everything. And I said to myself, as I was watching this in 97, God, if I produced this, I would have those medics or doctors in bio containment suits, the hazmat suits with the pressurized, valve on it. I said, this is really kind of hokey. Not that the alien wasn't hokey, but that why would you let all of these items into this hoax where you could say fake hoax, that who would do that? And even the vernacular on the bottom, DNI/27, who we were told by Victor said Department of Naval Intelligence, even in 97, there was no Department of Naval Intelligence. Why, again, are you putting an acronym on your video that can be looked up and found out that it doesn't exist? Why would you do that? Even the worst producer in Hollywood wouldn't do that. So then all of a sudden during the film, during the viewing of it, I started to have a little change of heart. And when I listened to all of Victor's testimony, where he says, our perceptual framework, the aliens communicating to humans is like trying to put calculus into the grunts and screeches of a monkey. How could we back engineer the information from the alien or the craft? It was like handing a CD to somebody in 1800s Victorian England. And I'm like, that's really true. He says the creature started to medically flag. It took me 15 years, and I'm not jumping forward, but that is a archaic 1950s, 60s medical term. And I thought, geez, is a screenwriter in his 20s in 1996 really going to come up with a flag as a medical condition? And it was Victor's very pedantic personality, his behavior and speech, that made me say, again, the bells were going off in my head, and to say, Jon, this is your voice. This is your conscience. Something is not right with that video. And then on top of everything, that bizarre physiological monitor that did not go across the screen horizontally stayed in place and blipped up and down and seemed to coincide with the creature's coughing. Now, this is all before we hyper-examined the film. We enlarged the creature's face and whatnot. And when that documentary ended, I knew in some way, shape, or form, I was going to find out somehow the truth of it. And that's this film has always stayed in my mind. So when I get married, and 2 years later, and my wife and I move to the North Shore, and I run for Congress, I drop out to endorse the person that won the election, Congressman Mark Kirk. And before he won, he had Senator John McCain come in for a rally. And I hope I'm not speaking too fast, so I'm going to slow down here. So it was at a rally that I took a picture with Senator McCain. And before he walked away, I said, Senator, can I ask you a question? Do you know what the Department of Naval Intelligence is? Dr. Sala, this jovial senator, snapped his neck and turned to me with this aggressive look and said, you don't need to know anything about that. And he walked away, and I'm like, wait a minute. Time out. Why did a U.S. senator just get pissed off, if I can use colorful language, pissed off at me about 3 letters on a fake hoax film? Why
That
did that
is
happen?
interesting.
Yeah,
That is interesting. I just wanted to kind of like, bring up something about the DNI, or the Department of Naval Intelligence. Well, one of the things about that is, of course, you have Robert Lazar, that he came out in 1989, I think it was. He
correct.
came out and he said that he worked at the S4 facility, Papoose Lake at Area 51, and he produced a pay slip. And that pay slip, sure enough, it shows that he is being paid by the United States Department of Naval Intelligence. And of course, that set off a furor because, as you pointed out, people were saying that there is no Department of Naval Intelligence. There's the Office of Naval
Correct.
Intelligence. That during the Second World War, there was a Department of Naval Intelligence, but that only lasted for a short time. And I've actually interviewed another Navy veteran who's since passed, William Tompkins, and he said that the Department of Naval Intelligence was set up to deal exclusively with the extraterrestrial or UFO phenomenon, that it was responsible for that. So, Robert Lazar's story supports that. And what you saw and what you identified in the Victor film, like the DNI initials in the screenshots that you sent us, I mean, that supports the existence of this officer of this Department of Naval Intelligence that is responsible for UFOs, extraterrestrial life.
Yeah, and I text a former naval aviator, professor of invertebrate studies. I always say that about him because he's so intelligent. I'm so proud to know him, who was a naval aviator and has 6 children, high school teacher, all the hallmarks of a liar. I'm joking. I'm being snarky, but just this legit, upright, straight shooter. And I said, Michael, what is the DNI? Dr. Saleh, he wrote me back in 7 seconds. He goes, that's the Department of Naval Intelligence. I'm like, is it real? He's like, of course it's real. I said, well, that's interesting. How do you know it's real? He said, because they tried to hire me before I went to aviation school in Pensacola. I said, they did. He's like, yeah. I said, well, what is it? He said, John, very simply put, it's the CIA arm of the Department of Navy. And I said, Michael, why can't I find it? Bombshell number 1. He said, John, it's an agency and it's buried in ONI. He said, so, you got to go to the ONI before you can get anywhere to the Department of Naval Intelligence. He said, it's an agency, it's an arm of the ONI, a secret agency, a secret arm of the ONI. And it's basically, he said, quote, it's like the CIA for the department, for the Naval Department. And I fell off my chair when he told me that. And I said, well, we've solved that. That's one check mark off the list, that this hoax video has put in an acronym that is a secret naval agency comprised of basically the CIA arm of the Department of Navy. So we've proven that. So how would again, I'm going back to the second tier production company in 1996 with a screenwriter. So a 23, 24-year-old screenwriter in 1996 California, but really before the internet, is going to know that the DNI really does exist. It is a secret agency of the Department of Navy. Come on, please.
So it sounds like an insider kind of leaked that Victor video of the alien being interrogated. So that came out in 1997, and you saw it shortly after it came out. So at what point did you decide that you wanted to really investigate this video and prove that it was real or false, whichever way your investigation took you?
Sure. It was during COVID, and I had a Hollywood producer friend of mine, and he was going over certain things. He's like, John, everyone's indoors. We need a cheap documentary we can produce. We were just going back and forth about ideas and stuff. And I told him about this film. And after that, I'm a workaholic, and I don't say that proudly, but it was really the first time because of COVID that I had time off from my career or occupation that did not include being sick or on vacation. And I'm not saying I was visited. I'm not saying I heard voices. It's my inner conscious one day. And I was sitting in my driveway. I'll never forget the day. I was sitting in my driveway in my car, and I had gotten home early. And I said, this film was bugging me all day. We're talking, 20 years later. And so I said, well, I'm an expediter, Dr. Sala. I get right, I part the wake and get right to the problem. I said, look, if I can prove this monitor was produced or was a hoax, because it looks like just a pane of glass held up by two brackets, maybe I can just prove the whole video is a hoax, and I can go on with my life, and that's it. So I did a really foolish thing. I contacted 3 PhD graduate students who did the history of physiological monitors, and I'm joking, of course. And I showed them the video, and they said to me, and I've got the email because the government has deleted some of my emails, and I'll get to that. But I have the sent emails, and they said to me, in all our year of research in the history of physiological monitors, that monitor, we don't know what it is. We don't know what it does. We don't know that it has ever been produced. It's ever been manufactured. And we've never seen anything like that in production or in use today. And I went, okay. And I do wrap-ups, Dr. Sala. So I've got a naval aviator telling me the DNI is real. I've got a pissed off United States senator. And I've got 3 PhD students telling me, PhD candidates telling me that their entire history of physiological monitors, they don't know what that monitor is. So like this investigation, so I could quote to people like you and your audience with the confidence of I kept going to source after source after source. That wasn't good enough for me. So then I called Hewlett Packard and Space Labs, not to be confused with SpaceX. These were the 2 companies, Dr. Sala, in 1991, when we were told the video was made, who made physiological monitors. Space Labs made them actually for NASA. I literally asked for, do you have older people in your physiological engineering department I can speak to? Because I've got an old situation I can talk to. They were very accommodating. One emailed me, but I got to talk to Hewlett Packard. He was an old guy. You could see that he was probably sitting in the corner. No one talked to him. And I said, hi, and I explained it. I sent him the snapshot of the video. And he said to me, kid, I don't know what you're looking at. I don't know what that is. But I've been doing this for 40 years. I have never seen anything like that. I've never heard of anything like that being produced or designed. I don't know why you would want the physiological blip to stay put. And he said, and he goes, and this is real. I said, sir, this was allegedly from a government facility. He said, well, it looks like we're looking at a one of. And I said, well, what is a one of? He said, well, we any moment that you have a problem or a situation that you need to figure out or you need to solve, or you have gold in the ground, you need to figure out if it's there and how to dig it out, you would implement something like that. And he said, if you had something with an unusual heart or physiological makeup, you would probably need to make a one of, design and build a one of that could monitor a weird physiology of that being. And I told him that this is a interview of an alleged off-planet being. He did not laugh at me, didn't hang up. So I said, would you make a monitor if an ET had a single ventricle heart and wasn't like a human heart? He said, well, you would have to, because our monitors probably couldn't monitor that type of heart. And I covered, Dr. Sala, I covered the phone. I went, is this happening? Does this is this guy for real? He just told me that, this has never been manufactured. It's not in, never, 40-year physiological monitor expert has never seen this, but he thinks it could be a one-off developed by the government. Well, that was it. That I was off to the races of this. There's more. I've got to prove the provenance of this film.
Right. So you saw things in the alien interrogation film that matched this kind of unique physiological equipment that is used for very special cases, possibly alien interrogations. So in the Victor video, it showed one of the slides showed a list of names, or is that something that you were able to? Well, I guess you were able to lift that out of the VHS tape. And
no,
yeah, can you tell us about this? You sent that to me, this list of names and redacted. So yeah, tell us about what that list represents.
You scared me for a little bit because I hoped I sent you the redacted one. Okay, we're jumping forward a little bit, and I have no problem with that. So. I after the conversation with Space Labs, Dr. Sala, I said to myself, I have to figure some way out to find witnesses or experts or anybody that could tell me anything about S4 or or anything else. And I did realize that about 75% of the people surrounding this were dead or elderly, and this was a matter of time. And so I went on the Jeff Rench show, which is the first time I read but not deleted emails were swiped off my phone. That's another story we can get into because I've asked Apple, AOL, Google. Nobody can tell me how this happened. And Apple did a deep dive audit on my phone. And after the Jeff Rench show, because I tried to metastasize, Dr. Sala, this investigation, put it out, give it the Oprah effect that maybe somebody would hear it and say, I got to help this guy. And about 3 weeks after that appearance, I started getting emails from a person who I call the chairman, and I'll explain that very simply. And he said, got your appearance on, listened to your appearance on Jeff Rench. You've got some things wrong, some things right. There was this testing program, but he would only send me an email a month, Dr. Sala, and I want to be very specific on that. And on my birthday, now I'm professional wrestler and a politician. I think you could find my birthday pretty easily, but I found it coincidental that on my birthday, about 9 months after I went of this testing period, this guy is for real. Is he gonna, is he gonna do a good job? Is he a good researcher? On my birthday, I get the from the horse's mouth, and I open up the email, and the email was, from what his words were to me, this email was a report taken directly from the Defense Intelligence Agency regarding the unauthorized viewing. They didn't call this a theft because the film was taken from out of Area 51. They called it an unauthorized viewing. And a lot of people are like, that is interesting. I couldn't make that up. It said this was the date of that film that we saw with the alien. This was the time of it. And these were the military people and the men in and behind the viewing partition, because they were behind a viewing partition with the cameraman. And folks, that I literally froze in my car. I remember I was at a McDonald's parking lot just outside of Gary, Indiana, traveling, and I was frozen. I to see these names, it was like I don't know. It was like it was. I can't describe the feeling of actually seeing the names of the men were there. And as Linda Moulton Howell told me, because I've shared this report with her, she's like, "You have gold here." I said, "Why? Why do I have gold?" She's like, "John, I've never heard of one of these people. And in ufology, when you come up with names that no one has ever heard of, yet you can Google them," she said, "This is either the most elaborate hoax on the planet starting in 97, or you have been given the names of the individuals looking at this alien." And so, again, go ahead. Do you have any question?
Yes. So you were given this list and you began to do some due diligence on that list. And so What did you discover about the names? And
Yeah,
I assume that you did those redactions, so you have that list of names. So
yes,
you were able to
yes.
investigate those individuals. And so, what did you find?
Just fascinating. First of all, I want Dr. Sala. I am an open book here, so I want to tell everyone this. I call him the chairman. You'll find out why. He took the report from the DIA. He transferred it onto his email using different font. I was instructed to, if I was going to ever show it in my research with my research cohorts, that I would redact the names until we were ready to show it. And that I would then take his font, his email, put it into my email in my font. So I want to be clear, because I am an open book. I don't want any of the keyboard warriors to start going crazy. This is my print so this is the third generation, purposely using different font on every level. He's very cautious, and I respect him for that. So let's go down. So we have Colonel so-and-so of U.S. Army Intelligence. Dr. Sala, I Googled this man. He's got a very famous father from World War II, and no, it's not Patton, and no, it isn't MacArthur. But he's got a famous father from World War II. And I see that he was retired at the time of the filming. I'm like, well, this is it. Somebody's screwing with me. This is an elaborate hoax. This guy wasn't even there, or wasn't even in the Army or in military. But I go down to his bio. He was working at the time for TRW, which is an appendage of military intelligence, for everyone that doesn't know this. So I'm like, okay, that's not a hoax, maybe. So I go to the next person. Excuse me. Dr. So-and-so, U.S. Army Medical Corps. Dr. Sala, I don't even know what the Army Medical Corps is. So I Google him. This is a doctor who was about 80 years old 3 years ago when I Googled him. Nothing on him. Nothing. How could a doctor have no bio on the internet, not awards or anything? And I learned from Don Schmidt, the Roswell expert, it's called being sheep dipped. They kind of zoop, old Bob Lazar trick that they performed on him, I think, where they just kind of erase things of your lineage. Dr. Sala, I found, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to just to kind of like give a date for this. So the alien interrogation, are we talking about an alien that survived a crash incident? Are we talking about the Roswell crash or some other incident? And so therefore the people on this list, they were present at that time. So are we talking 1940s, 50s? When did this alien get interrogated?
Great question. Victor tells us that the alien came to the Papoose Lake facility in and around 1989. And this film was from April of 1991. That's a great question. So yes, this is not a being from Roswell or anything like that. And we believe, but I have no one telling me the information. We believe it was from the Kalahari crash in South Africa, but I cannot confirm that. That is pure speculation. Again, I'm trying to be an open book here. Dr. Sala, I find this doctor's widow, his second wife, and I'm going to give her a name of Kim. And I call her up and I said to Kim, hi, my name is Jon Stewart. I'm a documentary producer. I would like to talk to you about, and he's got a nickname, and I used his nickname. She said, sure. I said, Kim, I don't want you to hang up the phone. This is very uncomfortable. This is like telling a wife that her husband was a cross-dresser, and I don't even mean to be glib. I mean, can you imagine calling someone out of the blue who's 80 years old and telling them, oh, your husband was an alien doctor? But so I did, and I said, he worked in this program. I would like to send you the video. And I stopped talking, and there was silence. I'm like, oh, God, I'm going to get hung up on it. She's like, well, that's really interesting. I said, Kim, why is that interesting? She said, John, I'm 80 years old. All of our friends are in their 70s and 80s. A lot of them have been in the military. And when we've always gotten together for the past 25 years, my husband never talks about anything of his experience in the military. She's like, John, yeah, men keep their harsh combat stories to themselves, but anybody in the military service has funny stories about their drill instructor or their first assignment or where they did basic training, so on and so forth. And she's like, every time we got together with people from Vietnam, World War II, Korea, She said, my husband would never, he'd be mum, tight-lipped. And we got into a couple of arguments about it because he never wanted to talk about his time in the U.S. Army Medical Corps. I'm like, Kim, what is the Army Medical Corps? She said it's the unit where the doctors for the Army exist. And so here I have a man that worked for TRW, a widow telling me that her doctor husband, who was on the list, never talked about, he's dead, never talked about his experience in the Army. And I'm thinking, this is getting kind of strange and bizarre. So I get the line, and I find it funny. Even the DIA didn't even know who this person was because it was question mark, question mark, question mark. Or maybe the chairman did it. I Google the next person, Dr. Craig, and thank God he's redacted because I don't, want his. He is still practicing medicine in Connecticut. I've called his office several times as a documentary producer, not the nature, and he refuses to call me back. I was even going to make an appointment, and which I still might, because he still doesn't. Well, he might have been contacted now. What's going on? But I'd like to make an appointment with him and go into his office and tell him, here it is. Here is bombshell number 2, Dr. Sala. The creature we see has a respiratory or breathing issue at the end of the film, right? He is coughing. The creature is gasping for breath. Do you know what that doctor, I'm sorry, I'm getting hyperbolic. Sorry. I'll calm down. Do you know what that doctor did in 1991? He worked for the VA. Do you know what he specialized in 1991? Pulmonology. So let's backtrack. I get this list of men. One of them back in 1991 was a pulmonologist. How do you find, how could that even how could somebody even find that and put that on a list? So I'm like, this is really, really, really getting bizarre. The next person is an admiral, a vice admiral with naval intelligence.
Are we talking here about Admiral Bobby Ray Inman?
We are not. Again,
Okay.
Linda Moulton Howe, quote, I have never heard of any of these men before in my life. John, you have gold. Okay. I'm not the expert. You people are. And I don't say that disrespectfully, but people like yourself are the experts. So that's what I'm being told. I'm not going to go into this admiral yet until we talk about the 27 on the bottom of the film. All I can tell you was that this guy was so high up on the food chain that I got nervous. The next line, Captain of Naval Intelligence. So I Google him. He retired a vice admiral. So I'm like, well, this is a hoax. They finally screwed up. They put down somebody who was a captain. He's really a vice admiral. One of my researchers goes, dummy, John, this is from 1991. Maybe he was a captain in 91 and 25 years later retired as a vice admiral. I'm like, oh my God, I have ADD, so I don't think straight sometimes. I'm like, I don't believe this. So I started to email him, Dr. Sala, without any pretense of I'm a documentary producer. I'm doing a film about the military. We were on such good relationship. He was like, call me by his nickname, a vice admiral. I was ready to go to Virginia to play golf with him. That's just how nice our email back and forth were. I want people to remember that. We exchanged about 3 to 4 emails. The last email.
Another guess, a Vice Admiral Larry Marsh.
No. Nope. So, and this guy's got a nickname who he asked me to call him by, which was very uncomfortable for me to do that. The last email I sent him was this report unredacted, along with the longer report that explains how it got out of Area 51. Dr. Sala, he ghosted me. Now, I want to be clear here to you and your listeners and viewers. It's 2022. When you ghost somebody electronically, text or email, to me, that speaks a million words, because that is basically, you or my father or me would have wrote that person back saying, are you crazy? You must be a lunatic. I don't know what this is. You're totally wrong. But I found out that military people don't like to dig the hole any deeper that they're in. And emailing me back that this was a hoax, this is fake, I've never been there, is digging, in what I've been told, himself into a deeper hole. So they say nothing. I also found out another reason why there was mums on this. So I was just blown away. I found out that, he was a captain in 1991 and he was with Naval Intelligence. The next two lines are the telepath. And it wasn't really telepathy that they were using. It was called thought projection, Dr. Sala, meaning like you didn't even have to think about it. It was just placed in your head. This is the description that was given to me. I don't want to give away these two people. I will say that they both had a vocation. They were the most prolific of the telepaths, meaning they could garner information instantaneously. And in revealing what they did and who they are right now will go take us into the Da Vinci Code movie. And I don't want to do that because let's not, I don't want to put a tinfoil hat on this stuff. And go ahead.
Just on the telepath issue, I just wanted to comment. You probably have heard of Clifford Stone. He was involved in crash retrievals from 1969 to 1991. So he would have finished just around the time of this interrogation occurring, and he was trained to be a telepath. He would go in and he would have these telepathic communications with any of the aliens that had crashed. And as I recall, he performed 12 crash retrieval operations around the world, including the United States. And one of them could have been the Kalahari crash or the Kalahari incident. I recall him saying he went around the world, and one of those incidents could have been that Kalahari crash. So, I'm just wondering, he may not have been one of the telepaths there, but that function was something that he did fulfill in past incidents.
Yeah, he is one of my regrets because it was Robert Dean, Clifford Stone, and we will find out Wendell Stevens, who have so much to play a part of this, and they all died before I could contact them, before I could realize that they were more part of it than just like Robert Dean being in the documentary in 1997. I don't know where to go. So here I am. I've researched every name on the list. Thank you for bringing it back up. So here's bombshell number 3, I think we're at. I said to myself, Dr. Sala, there's one part of Victor's testimony which doesn't make sense. You are weighed in the nude when you arrive S4. You are weighed in the nude when you leave S4 or S2. I don't know how you could get out a CD-ROM or even a thumb drive if you're weighed in the nude. Sorry. And it never made sense to me. But the report from the DIA, I was told from the chairman, there's another page of this, which goes into detail how it was taken out. And it's the Ocean's 11 movie. I think it was Ocean's 11, where the money was let out of the casino on purpose. And the report simply says, when the visitor, which he's called, and also we have to go over the new designation of extraterrestrials, which I hope I do not forget to tell you. When the visitor started to have a respiratory issue, the interview was terminated, and a United States Air Force policeman escorted a United States Air Force cameraman and the film back to the Groom Lake Photo Lab. Now, again, if you were hoaxing this email to me, wouldn't you say he was escorted back to the Area 51 or the Area 51 audiovisual lab? Specifically, he was, and I just find it weird that little sayings like that, along with unauthorized viewing instead of a stolen film, it barks, military. The cameraman was taken back to the Groom Lake Photo Lab. 3 days later, not that night, not that day, not a day later, 3 days later, the report says, the cameraman made 2 copies. One was for file, and the other copy he placed in a GSA, folks, listen to me. He placed in a GSA burn bag for disposal. And it was in this burn bag that was in his gym duffel bag that was then taken off the base of Area 51. Now, I cry bullocks. Come on. How can you get your bag with something in it, especially a burn bag? Then I find out through 2 different witnesses that on certain days, the security at the Air Force security at Area 51. I think it's Wackenhut is the outside perimeter security. Inside, it's U.S. Air Force policemen. Many of those people were very lax. And when you could encounter one of these security guards, he might not check your pockets. If he's been seeing you for a couple of years, it might be a wave through or just a real quick look-see in your bag. But the mystery, to me, the hoax, the anti-hoax of there's no way someone's getting anything out of S4 or S2 has been proven. I got the proof. It was let out. And it was a second copy made. It was then, the report says, and I will give the name because he is not Victor, even though I thought he was Victor. The report goes on to say a DIA employee named Joseph Yeager then assisted the cameraman on the sale of the film to a third party. After the sale of this, the film was then ended up with Wendell Stevens, who gave it to Bob Dean. Bob Dean put it in a safety deposit box in Paradise Valley Bank in Arizona. I did the FBI raided that bank and didn't find it. I'm not jumping forward. I did a FOIA on that raid and was turned down, said I could not know any information on Robert Odell Dean because he wasn't related to me, but I did do a FOIA on that raid, but nothing was found. We have been told now the FBI did not find anything at this bank. Let me give you another little bombshell. Not only was
before we go there,
sure,
John,
sorry.
I just wanted to bring up that image that you sent me of the aerial view of this. I guess that's the lab that you were talking about, the photo lab at the S2 area of Papoose Lakes. So you want to kind of talk about this image
Sure.
that you sent me?
Okay, so this was sent to me, and everyone uses S4. It's almost like saying I wrestled at Madison Square Garden when really maybe I wrestled in the building next to it, but you tell everyone Madison Square Garden. It's the overall, general phrase a lot of people use, like Lazar and whatnot. Of course, Lazar did work at S4. But we have now basically proven, or through such a high degree of testimony, that the alien housing complex, this is what it's called, the AHC, is not located in S4. We have the schematics of S4. There is no viewing room. There is no alien housing. The aliens in the past were housed beneath this building called S2, Sector 2, and that building is called Annex 2. And that satellite is showing the entrance to S2. We are told that you pull down a ramp, you make a left turn into a parking space. United States Air Force policeman, a security guard, comes out with an exhaust hose, puts it on your exhaust pipe. You go into the office and you exchange badges to let you into S2 and then into the S4 complex. So here is probably something that's never been heard. There is where underground the aliens were housed. And we've proven that because we have the schematics for all the levels of S4, and there is no housing for creatures or visitors. And there is no viewing room. There is no, as they called it, the ambassador suite. And I find that funny too, the ambassador suite, these beings, these visitors, as they called them, the United States government viewed them as ambassadors from other planets. So I find it funny, again, through this vernacular, we get another clue of not a hoax, of Victor calling and another person calling the interview room the ambassador suite. And a suite is really a more comfortable room for anyone that occupies it. And in Victor's testimony, he talks about the government's perceived perception of trying to, care about the creature's comfort. So I do find that funny, that ambassador suite.
I did want to talk about what Victor had said, but with that image that you showed of the S2, I mean, how did that satellite photo come about? I mean, is that...
I can't say that right now. It was leaked to me. Yeah, I cannot say that right now.
I see. Okay, so this is something
But it
that
was not somebody
reveals
from the
you.
military. Again, I'm an open book. I try and be as honest and disclosure as much as possible as I can, because the documentary is still not out, so it's coming. And I know I've been saying that for 2 years, but
Mm.
I can't say that right now. But it was not a military person that leaked that to me. That's all I'll say.
Okay, so you spent a lot of time investigating that the Victor video of the interrogation, and
Right.
the list of names,
Right.
the different aspects of the video itself in terms of Victor, and I think you've consulted experts in cinematics and
We did.
photography and videography, and they said that this was not a fake video. So you want to maybe tell us a little bit about these experts you consulted that said that this alien interrogation video that Victor gave or put out was not fake.
Right. So Victor says that he transferred the film to VHS, and that was given to Rocket Pictures. And so, again, so I could go to people like you and your viewers again with, oh, wow, this guy really, really followed the breadcrumb trail. I hired Bill Mums, and Bill Mums was hired by National Geographic. I think we're familiar with that company, to hyper-analyze the Patterson-Gimlin Bigfoot film from 1967. So I hired Bill. It was very expensive. And Bill said that he is 99% sure this was filmed on 16 millimeter film. Why is that important? Well, it's important because the government back in 1991 was still using 16 millimeter film for very special projects or special filming, like an alien interview. And they were transferring to videotape in the coming years. But we have proven without a doubt that the government used 16 millimeter film. Some said this was shot on VHS. Not that that would totally prove it's a hoax. It would start to lend evidence that maybe it's not what we think. So he agrees that it's 16 millimeter film. He said one more thing about the film, because he didn't want to get himself too deep, in before he can, because he wants to recreate the animatronic doll, or try to recreate an animatronic doll that looks and moves like this alien. He said, John, there's one head scratcher on this film. Every foam, latex, animatronic puppet that has ever been created has folds, a crease under the armpits, because after they come out of the mold and it's hung up or whatever, it's then laid down at 3/4 of being dried for 3/4, and the arms start to sag down, and that always causes a crease. And he sends me like 20 examples of that. He said, Bill Mums, National Geographic expert, your alien creature does not have those creases under its armpits, and I can't figure out how anyone would create that where it did not have any creases under the armpit, because it has not been done yet. So here's another expert talking about the film with I've never seen this. I've never seen this before. This has not been able, no one can do this yet. I send him the close-up of the mouth. And this is the most shocking part. We are told that this type of gray, which is called a haploid, human beings are diploid. Dr. Saleh, if I'm saying that wrong, step in, which means we have both sex chromosomes in our DNA. This is a haploid. They have one sex chromosome. And I am not a DNA scientist, but we are told that they have no lips, just a slit. When you magnify this face close up, it does this instantaneously. Look at that. Okay, you're looking at it right now. You don't see any lips. That opening and closing, folks, happens instantaneously. This is 1991. There is no one even from Disney. Now think about the Pirates of the Caribbean ride with the bad animatronics. This is 1991, without any break in the camera, that this alien creature opens and closes its mouth instantaneously. And Bill Mums says, there are servos that can open a mouth, but it does it so fast. And you don't see the servo spring or metal parts underneath the skin of the mouth. There's like, look at that. You don't see any ridge around the mouth. And it opens and closes that mouth instantaneously. We didn't see this in 1997. I mean, we saw it, but it wasn't close up. And when we hyper magnified this footage, Dr. Sala, I fell off my chair. I'm like, there is no way that animatronic people could do that quick in 1991 without any indentation showing around the mouth. And we also see the skin around the ocular socket of the eyes move, and the eyes actually change shape. It goes from round, and then in one segment of the film, the bottom of the eye the skin is more like a straight line. It's totally bizarre. Yes, there is some film, fragmenting because of the pixels, but you can see the eye here. There you go, right there. The eye to the left, folks. Look at how straight the bottom of the eye is. Now, Dr. Sala, if you go back to the picture before, you'll see that the eye is round. I'm not saying that was totally impossible in 1991, but look at the eyes round, folks. I mean, so we have a strip mall production company who has now created the most highly advanced animatronic doll in existence, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a budget of about $75,000. That includes Victor's pay, to make a puppet, an animatronic puppet that the National Geographic expert is doing the head scratch going, I don't know how they did this. And then people say, well, it doesn't show the chest. In certain points of the film, the torchlight of the doctor shines on the chest. You see the creature's tannish, bone-colored chest, the crease, the arm, and the no crease, which is how Bill Mums got to see that, because he saw the illumination of the thorax and the arms. It just goes bizarre to more bizarre as we examine each facet of this film. And we're still not getting to the bombshell, which I hope we can get to.
Right. Well, I mean, you've done clearly extensive research on this video, and everything that you've talked about and you've researched seems to support that this is a very credible, that this was genuine. So this is, if it is genuine, I mean, this answers the question. Well, where's the evidence that aliens are visiting us? And here you have a video that was released in 97 showing exactly that, and everything you've done seems to support that. So, well, I guess the question here is, well, if this interrogation happened in 91 and the film of that interrogation is leaked in 97, by people within the Department of Naval Intelligence, I guess the conclusion is that there are senior people in the Department of Naval Intelligence that want disclosure to happen. I mean, would you kind of elaborate on that?
Yeah, well, we don't believe it was leaked by the Department of Naval Intelligence. We believe it was leaked. There was, and Bob Lazar alludes to this, there was a draconian atmosphere in S4 that pissed a lot of people off. And from a Navy SEAL security guard sentry who was down at S4 to Bob who describes draconian treatment of scientists and military personnel, to a person's debit card not working, to Victor's being disgruntled, along with Joseph Yeager, we have found out that there was a small cabal of employees at S4 and S2 that conspired to get this video out. And it was Victor waiting 5 years to release this video that helped him put distance between himself and this video, which I thought was very smart. And I would appear that Victor was retired from the government at this point when he brought the video to Rocket Pictures. And we were told the reason why the government literally has never said a word about it is because this film has been determined blacklisted by the government. I don't even know what that means, but I do know what people have been told in the Pentagon, which means you are not to talk about it, you are not to acknowledge it, You are not to mention it. You are not to make any comments about it to anyone. This doesn't exist. Now, I have an employee with an alphabet soup intelligence agency telling me that that is exactly what this film is. And think about it, Dr. Saleh. If the government prosecuted Victor, okay, because they did find him out in 2008, and Obama declined to prosecute him. If they prosecuted him, why are you prosecuting someone for putting onto the open market a fake hoaxed alien? You would only prosecute him if that film was real. So there's a very interesting legal little sidebar in a very interesting situation why the government really totally had their hands tied. This is why they could not even acknowledge anything about this film. And I wanted to say one thing. I did get an informer. I wouldn't say he was a leaker. We tried to get him on camera. He works for an alphabet soup intelligence agency. And when I sent him the questions we were going to ask him in the documentary, he absolutely ghosted me for 4 months. I had to beg his friend who put us together to at least tell me that he's alive, or if he's not alive, or if I'm in trouble. And the text message he sent me, Dr. Saleh, had so much Pentagon coding and vernacular in it that it was beyond belief. And he basically said, I was told by a higher up that you are on the watch list. I cannot talk to you. I can never talk to you. He used cease and desist. He said that you are on the watch list now with the Pentagon for numerous FOIAs, the nature of the FOIAs, your overseas emails, and the questions that you submitted, and the nature of your documentary. I was a little scared by that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something that lends plausibility to your explanation that people within the S4 facility were disgruntled by the draconian security, and that they leaked that Victor video or allowed it to come out, and Victor then ran with it. There was a whistleblower, an insider, a super soldier, actually an assassin by the name of Connor O'Ryan.
This is the man I'm talking about. Yeah, his debit card.
Derek Hennessy. Derek Hennessy. He was interviewed by Wendell Stevens, and I think Robert Dean may have had something to do with him as well. And Sean David Morton also was involved. But this was a real assassin who was trained. He was a former Navy SEAL, and he would work out of the S4 facility.
Correct.
On rotating, and he'd be doing things, and he kind of like got out for a little while, and he leaked a lot of stuff. He released it to Wendell Stevens, and eventually Wendell Stevens, after sitting on it for 10 years, decided that it was real and then released it all. So Derek Hennessy, I mean, you said this is the same guy. That, do you think he was behind the release of the file?
He says it himself that there was some of the people that post stuff on YouTube, you're my heroes. Somebody finds a segment of Derek Hennessy's testimony. He talks about the because Victor was a biologist. He was a scientist. And Derek Hennessy talks about a biologist who was in charge of the deceased beings in the full-size tubes full of solution. This biologist was in charge of those deceased aliens. So we all believe this to be, he's speaking of Victor. And then, Dr. Saleh, we find an email from 1999 from a major named Thomas Mack. And he says in the email to a man named Rick Bossman, I was the project leader for Project Aquarius, which was the umbrella project for all things concerning ETs and aliens and their interaction with the government or people or everything in between. And it says in the email that, Dan Burrish worked on the project, find Rick Doty. He's a New Mexico State police officer. He's a real neat guy. Yes, this project is real. I was from the 70s to the 80s. We've got a picture of him at Area 51, which looks like a summer camp, with the painted white rocks. Interesting stuff. We find out that this man, this Thomas Mack, was a beloved figure. And he says in the email, I have many things about the government that I could embarrass them. And he dies 9 months later of a massive brain hemorrhage. I'm not alluding to the government doing that because his family said that there were strokes and aneurysms were common in their family. But I do find that extremely, the timing of that extremely bizarre. So we have another hidden bizarre email that we find that also says this project is real. Let me go back to the leaker that ghosted me, that really scared the crap out of me, and still to this day. This is bombshell. This isn't the final bombshell. Dr. Sala, what I'm going to tell you, I've only said one time. Now this is what, if anybody in the Pentagon is at home having coffee, they're going to do a spit take when I say this. The new designation for aliens by the Pentagon is SABER, SABER, synthetic astrobiological extraterrestrial races. So if you want to be your hero in your UFO group or community, lay that on them. This is the ultra top secret name that has now been given to the race of the Greys that we've all heard are some kind of synthetic biological android, mechanism with real skin and as Victor said, appears to be biologically, in nature. So that is the new designation that I think is one of the biggest bombshells in the UFO community. Not only have I proven this video right, but I am now telling people the new designation by the Pentagon, or not even the Pentagon, because that's even another story. We have heard that 75% of the Pentagon doesn't even know about these programs, and they're frustrated. And there's this bloodless civil war going on where many Pentagon officials want this information released. And so there is the new designation, SABER, synthetic astrobiological extraterrestrial races. This is what I got from the leaker, or from the employee. I won't even call him a leaker because he was authorized to at least speak with me, but could not appear on camera. And I wanted to, before we go, Dr. Sala, the last absolute bombshell, which goes in coordinates with the admiral that was in that report. We never still understand what 27 is. Victor tells us that it is a gerrymandered cataloging system. And I said bullshit as soon as I heard that. So I'm watching a documentary where Ronald Reagan is briefed about extraterrestrials in 1980. And on the top of every page, folks, listen to me very closely here. This is the bombshell. On top of every briefing page for Ronald Reagan in 1980 about extraterrestrials was the number 27. So I stopped and I looked at my wife. We were laying in bed because I was watching the documentary. My wife, who, by the way, if anyone ever meets me or my wife, will you pat her on the back? Because to deal with me in this whole investigation, she has been a saint, and I always want to publicly thank her and compliment her. But I said, Joanne, the 27 is on the bottom of the alien interview. So I called up my military source that always helped me on vernacular and coding and paperwork and FOIA. I said, what is 27? And he said, well, that's Yankee White. And I'm like, okay, what's Yankee White? He said, John, Yankee White is another umbrella security term for anyone who has contact or briefs the president of the United States. Now I'm like, he goes, if you see 27 and you don't talk to the president personally, you are not to view, look at, touch that material. I go back in the admiral's name, who's on that list, and I don't want to expose anything right now, but let's just say I have proof that he was a briefing liaison in the Oval Office for the first George Bush, George Herbert Bush.
So we
George
want
Bush
to kind of back up there. So you're saying that this list of names that this DIA source leaked to you, that admiral whose name you know actually was involved in the briefings during the
reason for
Bush administration.
Yes, sir. The reason, ladies and gentlemen, you see 27 on that screen is because that admiral was in the Oval Office as a briefing military liaison, intelligence liaison to someone else who I will not say. And yes, had direct communication with the president of the United States. And that is why the number 27 is on that film. And I don't even know if Victor realized what that was also. And that is when I truly, thought to myself that, I have stopped the investigation, Dr. Sala, because I can't find anyone to debunk it. I can't find one person that says, well, let me tell you something about it, or let me burst your bubble. I can't find anything else to play the devil's advocate. No one of any credibility. And that's another thing. 30 years this has been out. No one in Hollywood who ever at a party trying to impress some girl at an awards party ever bragged that they made that animatronic doll, which is the most advanced puppet ever devised in 1991. No one's ever bragged about it. No one ever said that they did the craft catering, they did accounting, they were part of the monitor, hoaxing that. No one of credibility has ever come forward with any proof to say I did that production. And I find that striking too. So I concluded my investigation because I can't find anyone to play the devil's advocate. And I think that I've covered every bit of other than having this alien in formaldehyde in my garage. I'm at the end of really proving what a Vatican official told me in Havana, that you're looking at the most important historical document in human history. And if somebody can produce a VHS tape of the crucifixion or a Polaroid of Moses parting the Red Sea, you are looking at the most important historical document in human history. And we proved that the government filmed it, period.
Now, you have recently completed a trailer to, I guess, a documentary that you've created on your research into the Victor interrogation film. So you want to tell us about this trailer that you made before we show it?
Yeah, the trailer is basically what's called in Hollywood a sizzle reel. And this is something that you would send to an executive from like Netflix or Hulu or HBO. And it basically gives gives what the documentary is all about in a very theatrical Hollywood production. But I think it's very interesting and it's very well done. And it just speaks exactly what our investigation proved. And you'll see that.
Okay, so we'll play that now, and then on the other side of that, we'll just kind of wrap up. So let's play that video clip.
I don't think the government considers me an enemy, but I do think that the government considers me a threat.
Dramatic new details about the unidentified object
shot down over the U.S. and Canada.
They could identify no propulsion system. The object interfered with the plane's sensors.
U.S. officials described it as an octagonal structure.
I gave the order to take down these three objects.
Have you ruled out aliens or extraterrestrials?
There is no indication of aliens or extraterrestrial activity.
The government hasn't just been lying for weeks. It's been lying for decades. In 1996, a man we know as Victor came with this very bizarre VHS tape. This VHS tape showed a 3-minute segment of an alien creature, and Victor was emphatic that this was a true video of an extraterrestrial taken out of Area 51. Initially, when I looked at this film, I just wanted to find the truth. I asked Senator McCain about this film. He turned to me with this aggressive look, and he said, "You don't need to know anything about that." And he stormed off and walked away from me. No one in the government would give me any answers, so I went to find my own. This tape has completely engrossed and encompassed my life for the past 2 decades. We wanted to know what was on that film, what was exactly that creature, where it came from. In this investigation, we spoke with animatronic experts. We spoke with video experts. We spoke with people in the medical field that are experts on physiological monitors. We talked to numerous military whistleblowers who came forward to us, gathering intelligence in places like Havana, in London, and all over the Southwest United States. We are totally confident, beyond 100%, that this film was filmed by the government. We show that it is valid and it is not a hoax, and everyone's got explaining to do.
Our government has lied about UFO information, it's withheld UFO files, and even spied on UFO witnesses.
It's not just this tape. This tape is the tip of the iceberg.
The Pentagon now confirms the existence of a secretive program.
You're calling out the military-industrial complex. That's no small matter.
There's so many questions out there. It's a great mystery.
This video is going to force them to at least tell the public, yes, they're here.
What is that?
And we've been covering it up the whole time.
What are these objects? Who sent them? Do they know something that they're holding back?
That's pretty intriguing.
The importance of this investigation is that it's proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that we are not alone.
You are saying that this is a wake-up call.
We're talking about exposing, for all practical purposes, the greatest cover-up and the greatest secret in mankind.
So that's a really fascinating trailer to this documentary that you plan to release soon. Or when will that be released, and how can people get it?
One of the criticisms that I have is this: it's coming. So I have been saying that for 2 years. I never understood, as much experience as I had in Hollywood, the glacial speed of everything. And I apologize for that. I am quite confident that we will see something at beginning of fall, late summer, beginning of fall, definitely something with this year. I promise that.
So where do people go, John, if they want to find out more about what you're doing, your investigation, and if they want to find out about the film itself, if they want to watch it?
Yeah, we will make an announcement when it comes to streaming services, of course. But I like one of the nice hallmarks of my investigation is, and I don't say there's nothing wrong with this, but I don't have a website where, I'm not, I don't have Patreon, or I'm not asking anyone to click and subscribe. Not that there's anything wrong with that. So I encourage everyone, and I've been getting a lot of emails, and I answer them very promptly. So I would just encourage anyone, any comments or anything to do with this investigation, I strongly urge you to email me. In my email is my full name spelled a little different. It's Jon, Jon, without the H. My middle name, Alan, Alan, and my last name, Stewart, Stewart, at AOL.com. Maybe Dr. Saleh, you could put it up during post-production. And people have been just so, I can't believe that I have not gotten a negative email yet, but people have been so supportive that it's overwhelming. I'm a sensitive guy, and I can tell you that I really appreciate everyone's email. And I just want to say thank you, Dr. Saleh, for having me on. I have tremendous amount of respect for you and what you've been doing. And I just want everyone to know that I am not an interloper. I am not a disruptor. I am simply discovered something very important. And I just want to try to help the United States government come out of the closet when it comes to this, when it comes to the matter of the alien phenomenon. That's all I'm really trying to do. I'm not calling for revolution or civil war. I understand the nature of this. I understand at times the secrecy, but we've come to the crossroads. And again, I'm just simply trying to be one of those people to help the government come out of the closet. That's all. And then we can move forward in life.
You have been listening
and
to
embrace this
Exopolitics
subject
Today
matter
with Dr. Michael Saleh.
and this revelation.
Please remember to
that
like,
obviously
share, and
we are not
subscribe
alone.
to this channel.
And I think it will be
Join
better
or start
for
a
mankind
conversation
and
in the
humanity
comments.
if we
Take
face
the time
this.
to explore the
we
vast
face this,
library of
this
best-selling
proposal
books, webinars,
and this
and podcasts by
phenomenon
Dr.
as
Saleh.
fact rather than
Visit
hocus pocus and
exopoliticstoday.com.
something that people in the government roll their eyes at.
Well, I want to thank you, John, for your dedication to finding the truth, to really putting those decades of work into investigating this alien interview that was released by Victor in '96. And I wish you all the best in completing the documentary and bringing this to the attention of the general public. And I definitely would love to have you back once you finish the video and that's released.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. We will definitely obviously tell everyone about it. I am trying to testify to the AARO also with Congress, just giving my investigation to them. I've been stonewalled by 5 Congress people. You'll probably hear about that because there has been some articles written. You will probably hear about that before the documentary. But again, Dr. Sala, I'd love to come back and talk to you about the conclusion of all of this. And thank you.
Thank you.
You have been listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Sala. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Join or start a conversation in the comments. Take the time to explore the vast library of best-selling books, webinars, and podcasts by Dr. Sala. Visit exopoliticstoday.com.